can I just take this moment to thank each and every one of you amazing supporters. This channel has grown into an amazing community of story lovers. I could not have done it without you guys. If you haven't yet subscribed, then please be part of this journey and help us reach new heights. Thank you. When I spotted a lightly used iPhone for sale on Facebook Marketplace for almost too good to believe cheap, my impulse for gratuitous deals overruled logic once again. The seller, Jake, claimed he just wanted the old thing gone after some recent fancy upgrade landed in his lap. His concise product description promised solid functionality, no serious cracks in the frame, and all the standard apps and storage capacity intact still. Oh, and available immediately for a mere $20 bucks if I acted fact. Well, that level of effortless bargain browsing suited my millennial blood perfectly. I arranged to meet Jake that same sunny afternoon at the mall food court, figuring a public place should deter any shadiness on what could always prove a risky private transaction. He didn't exactly exude young tech mobile in sweatpants and tousled hair when I arrived, but seemed affable enough for quick business. As I inspected the phone, Jake spewed rehearsed-sounding details about making space in his crowded gadget life with pride over scoring this hot new Android number. He was already rocking a flashy smartwatch on one wrist for good measure too. I tried engaging casual conversation about where he scored such stellar upgrades, but Jake just kept redirecting impatient chatter towards sealing our sweet deal instead. Taken momentarily aback by his abrupt urgency to bounce, I realized questions could wait for later online consumer reviews if anything seemed funky. For now, I was just stoked to get home and transfer my digital identity into this glossy icon status symbol for basically free. It didn't feel until hours later while manually uploading all my essential apps and data that I noticed one minor irregular function. Random foreign language pop-ups interrupting my enthusiastic progress. They contained SIM card not supported alerts or similar tech jargon I couldn't comprehend. Annoyed but determined, I cleared them dozens of times hoping to power through whatever glitch was causing such weirdness. Everything else operated normally enough, and I'd invested too much customized effort now to second-guess keeping my irresistible bargain. If software quirks persisted, I'd hassle Jake later or consult my more tech-savvy friends to exorcise the demons. Just as I had completed the final touches personalizing my new toy, a text message suddenly lit up the screen from an unknown sender. Figuring it one of Jake's lingering connections somehow mixed up, I opened it without much thought. But any logical explanation instantly evaporated reading the abnormal words now staring back confusingly. I can see you now, Sarah. Welcome back. I felt goosebumps prickle up my arms. The message clearly contained my first name accurately, but the creepy content imply I was being watched live through the device somehow. Unsettled, I cautiously replied asking who this was and why they were observing me. But another message popped up quicker than expected. You should not have come back, Sarah. It is not safe for you anymore. Come back where? I had never owned or used this phone before today. Panic began rising as more texts rapidly fired through. I know where you live now, Sarah. I saw what you wore to work today, Sarah. I know your boyfriend stays over most nights, Sarah. On the ominous messages poured in, each revealing specific private details about me, my address, routines, relationships. Someone or something with extensive personal access was taunting me aggressively through the phone. Bile burned my throat realizing I had utterly handed over the keys to my digitized kingdom on a silver platter to this anonymous stalker. Frantically, I tried powering down the device, but glitches refused to let it shut down fully. Even removing the battery did nothing but loop repetitive reboot screens. Was this high-tech equipment able to control itself remotely somehow? Before I could ponder next steps, one final text crawled across the illuminated lens as I held it trembling tightly. You can't hide from me, Sarah. Blind terror consumed me wholly in that suspended moment. I felt violated down to my very soul by this ominous intruder who could apparently track my reality through this portal involuntarily activated. Gasping through panic sobs, I grabbed a hammer and smashed the cursed iPhone into worthless scraps of glass and plastic. but it did little to shake the lingering icy grip of paranoia now throttling rational thoughts in a chokehold. I hardly slept for weeks after the trauma, riddled with anxiety over online security breaches and phantom creeper eyes following my every real-world move too. Just walking to my car or grabbing lunch solo filled me with self-conscious dread that coded trackers hovered nearby transmitting my image to unknown overseers. Vigilance became necessary survival. My rattled mental state worried friends and family who could scarcely grasp such suddenly erratic behavior, but boyfriend Matthew offered patient support as I funneled panicked energy toward regaining control of privacy realms. We installed home cameras, ran dark web monitoring programs, completed digital blackouts deleting personal profiles. Only after months of hypervigilant precautions did I find some semblance of relief again. But deep down, lingering unease still swirled, wary of anyone's true intent hidden behind screens. To this day, I analyze strangers' body language and technology usage closely for signs of surveillance when alone on busy streets. If gazes linger too long with clinical inspection rather than harmless curiosity, my nerves prickle anxiously once more. Any glint off a lens instantly raises internal alarms, wondering what images it captures or data gets extracted for unknown agendas. I still don't fully understand the sinister forces which targeted me that day after an innocent Facebook deal went horribly wrong. How many others may have interfaced dangerously with that hijacked device, as well across the digital plane? What fueled its shadowy abilities to harvest intimate access beyond consent? The answers bury themselves as unsolvable mysteries, just like Jake vanished permanently behind fraud profiles' invisibility shields. But the lingering questions forever reshaped my user experiences going forward. No longer would I tap blithely onto public Wi-Fi or accept thrilling app upgrades without analyzing permission gates guarded closely now. And beachheads stand armed eternally against relaxing too comfortably inside interconnected realms that promise security just outside technology's event horizon. For once vivid nightmares reveal how simply darker energies traverse our electronic barriers, no return exists to sweet oblivion we crave. Only steadfast diligence against those hockey-masked demons who skulk silently fingertips away until screens illuminate their haunting presence once again. My enthusiasm for upping my Instagram game kinda clouded logical thinking when I scored an absolute steal of a deal on a fancy DSLR camera kit on Facebook Marketplace. Way high-end here, some pro photographer dude was practically giving away for a couple $100. Beyond sketch pricing, everything else seemed fully legit, so I met the seller at the local coffee shop during busy daylight hours for safe vibes. Noah or Nate or something pulled up in his flashy sports car appearing exactly like I expected. Successful entrepreneurial type with lots of rad camera gear stashed for convenient impulse sales. He even offered me handy photography tips while proudly demoing the pristine equipment. We joked about stealing souls or capturing ghosts on film as I gleefully handed off cash for my shiny new toy. But back home later prepping for a test photo shoot with my pet iguana Sir Reginald von Clausworth, I discovered an SD memory card, still loaded from the previous owner's gigs. Figuring it probably held portfolio shots for promoting that amazing gear, I popped it in my laptop out of curiosity. But rather than pro-lifestyle sessions, something way more alarming appeared. Hundreds of spy-candid pics flooded my horrified eyes, mostly young teenage girls walking city streets solo. Zoomed-in long-lens photos showed subjects staring obliviously ahead, framed in crosshairs focused from behind. A few even revealed the shadowed photographer visibly lurking from dark alleyways or parked cars. No doubt the predatory angle aimed precisely up unknowing skirts. As bile burned my throat, more layers unfolded. Girls in locker room changing areas, bathroom stalls, bedroom windows at night. All featuring the primary high school age range sporting ponytails and braces. My hands trembled as I stared at the horrific images flooding the computer screen. Hundreds of photos of unsuspecting young girls, zoomed in from a distance by a telephoto lens. Their oblivious faces in crosshairs as they walked home from school or waited at bus stops, frozen in time by this predator's camera. The violation made my stomach churn, intruding on them in their most vulnerable moments. up their skirts as the wind blew their braces-filled smiles as they giggled with friends. And even to my dismay, shots of them undressing as silhouettes in lighted bedroom windows at night. This monster had cataloged every moment possible, leaving no innocence preserved from his prying rodent eyes. I clicked through photo after photo, bile rising in my throat as the full scope of his depravity revealed itself. Girls in locker room changing areas, half naked as they awkwardly pulled sports uniforms over their adolescent bodies. Bathroom stalls with zoom lenses poking under, capturing privates exposed as they sat to relieve themselves. Every inch of privacy shredded by this psychopath's obsession to document their blooming youth for his own revolting satisfaction. He stripped them of dignity and womanhood not yet fully their own, reducing goddesses in training to meet prey in his quest to quench what were surely unquenchable hungers. I pictured him hunched behind bushes for hours, painstakingly snapping hundreds of shots, or parked unseen in alleys and side streets, telephoto lens poised ready to catch a skirt lifted, the flash of cotton panties as a bag was dropped. Hedonistic eyes glued to each digitally captured moment, living vicariously through these images like so many conquests collected. My skin crawled imagining how many other hard drives and memory cards this guy had filled over the years, each one containing countless stolen glimpses of fledgling beauty through his warp-peeping Tom lens. Were they organized obsessively in encrypted drives, labeled with details and locations? Did he have a complex system of cross-referencing faces and body parts, detailing ages and development like some perverted zoological database? One thing was certain, I could not possibly be the first person to have encountered this monster's trophy hoard so haphazardly. How many other duped customers, website buyers, heck maybe even family members had seen these private moments meant only for development and self-discovery alone? It made my stomach physically ill. Fully disturbed, I almost trashed the camera gear altogether to sever ties with its tainted history. But my true crime addict alter ego hungered first for smoking gun evidence to stop this dangerous creep from exploiting more vulnerable targets. What if I did some internet sleuthing to unlock his identity and whereabouts for metadata details or something? Bring justice and protection to young girls whose paths he scoped far too close down. It felt noble enough at first, but soon obsessive mania hijacked me as I chased electronic trails into shadowy rabbit holes. Nestled behind multiple screen aliases, business fronts, and Bitcoin payments, this phantom proved a pro at staying anonymized. Meanwhile, his perverse collection kept expanding over subsequent memory cards, dumped monthly at my door, my bulletin board spider web of clues tangled overwhelming yet fruitlessly. I still don't know how that sicko discovered my address or even motivation to harass me individually. Maybe amusement at my feeble attempts to trace back origin points. An intricate cat and mouse gaslighting game with some obsessed but useless stranger. Either way, I had become an inadvertent player in his network somehow. Dozens more discs piled up containing countless furtive young female images, ultimately expanding this ghostly deviant's concealed vaults rather than stopping him. As my fruitless investigation stretched over months in exhausting futility, heavy depression sank in. I terminated social media to avoid judgment as isolated obsession swallowed all focus. Most friends wrote me off as a delusional head case, no matter how ardently I tried convincing them this menacing force lurked freely among oblivious society. I'm still haunted knowing the scale of foul misdeeds stacking untraceably higher behind unidentifiable masks, with no way to prove credibility of the innocuous-looking camera guy I met that fateful marketplace day. His wholesome public persona forever shields the grim reality only perverse secrets hold power to reveal about the truth of one's character. The nature of true evil seems to thrive untouchable through impenetrable walls fortified by the dark web and Bitcoin. No matter how passionately I scramble without rest to somehow save his faceless victims from such cruelty. In the end, my helpless fury could not pierce the surface, masking the humanity buried heartbreakingly deeper down. Alright, let me take you through a bizarre and somewhat unnerving experience I had with a Facebook Marketplace purchase. It's not your typical buyer's remorse story, but rather one that took a turn into the realm of the mysterious and slightly chilling. So there I was scrolling through Facebook Marketplace, as one does when they got a bit of spare cash and a hankering for some secondhand treasures. My eyes landed on this vintage writing desk. It was one of those old, solid wood pieces with intricate carvings, the kind that you'd imagine would have a ton of history and stories to tell. The seller had listed it for a ridiculously low price, claiming they were moving and needed it gone ASAP. A steal, I thought. I messaged the seller, did the usual back and forth, and before I knew it, I was picking up the desk. The exchange was pretty standard. The seller seemed like your average Joe, eager to clear out space. The desk was heavier than I anticipated, but hey, that's solid wood for you, right? Once home, I set about placing it in my study. It had this old-world charm, and I was pretty chuffed with myself for snagging such a deal. As I was arranging my things in the drawers, I noticed something odd about the bottom drawer. It seemed shallower than it should be. Curiosity piqued, I started feeling around, and lo and behold, discovered a false bottom. Now let me tell you, finding a secret compartment is every vintage furniture buyer's dream. It's like straight out of a mystery novel. Excitedly, I pried it open, half expecting some forgotten love letters or old photographs. But what I found instead made my blood run cold, a rusty old gun and a stack of documents that looked like they were from another era. The gun was old and clearly hadn't been used in years. It was the kind of thing you'd see in a gangster movie, not tucked away in a desk in suburban America. The documents were even more bizarre. They were a mix of what looked like old bank statements, letters written in a hurried scrawl, and newspaper clippings about a bank robbery that happened decades ago in a town I'd never heard of. My mind raced with possibilities. Had I stumbled upon relics from a long-forgotten crime? Was this desk previously owned by someone with a dark past? I spent hours poring over the documents, trying to piece together the story. The letters were vague but hinted at a life of crime and desperation. The bank statements showed transactions that, in hindsight, seemed shady. And those newspaper clippings, they detail a heist that had apparently gone wrong, with the culprits never caught. Sleep didn't come easy that night. The desk, now a silent sentinel in my study, seemed to loom larger and more ominous. I kept thinking about the gun. Who had it belonged to? Had it been used in the robbery? The rational part of me wanted to go to the police, but another part, perhaps fueled by too many detective novels, wanted to dig deeper. The next few days were spent in a whirl of amateur sleuthing. I visited the local library, looking up old newspapers and police records. The more I learned, the more the pieces seemed to fit. It appeared that the desk had once belonged to a member of the gang responsible for the heist. But here's where it gets weirder. According to an old police report, one of the gang members had vanished without a trace, never to be found. I was torn between fascination and unease. On one hand, I had a piece of history right in my house, a tangible connection to a decades-old mystery. On the other hand, it felt like I was harboring a ghost of sorts, a reminder of a life spent on the wrong side of the law. After much deliberation, I decided to hand over the gun and documents to the police. It was the right thing to do, I told myself. When I explained how I come across them, the officers were as baffled as I was. They took the items and promised to look into it, though I doubted anything would come of it after so many years. The desk is still with me minus its hidden contraband. It's a great conversation piece, though I've left out the part about the gun and the documents when showing it off. Sometimes late at night I find myself drawn to it, running my hands over the wood and wondering about the secrets it held. So there you have it. My brush with the remnants of a forgotten crime, all thanks to a seemingly innocuous purchase on Facebook Marketplace. It's funny how ordinary objects can have extraordinary stories, hidden just beneath the surface, waiting for someone to uncover them. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.